Así que give thanks to I-Mitri por la visita y por el tiempo que nos va a dedicar. Y vamos a estructurar un poco la entrevista. Está estructurada un poco de repaso de su trayectoria musical. Luego pasaremos, por supuesto, al You-Not y nos dará mucha información sobre el You-Not. Pero
So greetings to everyone. Thanks for reaching early. It's a pleasure to have some time to be able to talk about things. We don't usually get that chance. It's also a pleasure being right in front of a stack with a microphone, which also doesn't happen very often. And yeah, I was actually born in Paris.
Okay.
And my mom and dad were Greek, but they met in France. I was born in Paris, and then we moved to Greece when I was young. So yeah, my first project actually musically was I-Mitri National. At the time it was called Attico Minis, and later on it became Attico Minis Project, and so now I-Mitri International.
Okay. It was a band? Or?
Yes, it was initially a band which mixed different genres of music. So we played the influences from Pink Floyd, from Ozzy Tentacles, from just generally jamming. But we also did reggae music, and more reggae music took over. Yes, yes, and also in two parts, yes, because I went to England first in '97, which is just before we released our first record in Greece with I-Mitri International, which was '98. And I went there for exactly that. I went to Brixton and I went all around England to experience the dances and so on. And without really thinking about it again, I went around the world. I was living in India, and there was an opportunity to apply to certain universities. So I applied to the University of Leicester, and there was an interesting course there which was more experimental music technology. So it was technology, but more for how to make music rather than how to plug stuff in and control levels. That's what brought me to Leicester eventually.
Okay.
So it's interesting because it's a bit like how we're having this conversation. I was at university in Leicester, and I was there maybe a year and a half. I was playing a lot, but we were playing in little places, playing electronic music and very much live stuff, so sequencing live, doing vocal sampling, things like that whilst playing. I heard about Vibronics living in Leicester, and I was doing radio also at the time. So I invited him and Richie Roots, Steve and Richie Roots, to come to the show to talk about Vibronics, to talk about the music, and to play some of the music. And on this show, we discussed stuff on and off air, and I told Steve I'm a session musician, and at the time I was very much on my drums and my percussion and coming straight from the band. So Steve brought me in, and we recorded at the Vibronics studio the drums for Mama Africa, which was officially, I suppose, my first vinyl in England. And coincidentally, Richie Roots played the bass line for Mama Africa. And eventually, me and Richie started jamming together, him on bass, me on drums, and it was that created the material that eventually became CounterAction.
Okay.
Yes. Basically, you know, we spent, and I still play with Vibronics, a few years playing live, and Vibronics does different types of shows. In the past year, he's been touring with Brain Damage, for instance, and they do a live show. We also did a few live shows with live horns, live percussion, things like that, so I did that for a few years. And meanwhile, we were working on material with Richie and releasing on vinyl. And I had the opportunity to go around, do some live plays like we did yesterday to Way to Zion, and do some selecting shows here and there. But there is also a very good scene for live bands in England. So every city has one or two venues where there's live bands. You know, there's festivals around the UK, and we wanted to represent that music live. There was a few musicians in Leicester that I played with anyway, but it was musicians that weren't used to reggae music, and we took time to kind of find the groove and to learn the tunes. And so it wasn't a backing band as such. It was a band that was, you know, existing by musicians who were for that band. They weren't generally session musicians. And for a very long time we were able to present it. At the moment actually our drummer has gone on to greater things and we are looking for a drummer, so we're on a bit of a sabbatical. But it's also a way to represent the music. CounterAction, if you want, is a mix of digital dub, the new sort of sound system kind of dub music, but also all the sounds coming like on you, more analog music. And that's what CounterAction Band has been about. So there's part of it is live, and we have live drums, live bass, live keys, live vocals, live percussion. But there's also aspects that are pre-recorded that we mix live. So you have the ability to do stuff that you do in the studio on stage, whilst also being able to be flexible like a band. And that's always been, you know, the ultimate dream. Another band like that in England that I hold in great esteem is Blood Shantyites. Blood Shanty has his own band, he's on the drums. And again, it's a mix of both the worlds of the studio and
you mean
Blood Shanty, brother of Abba Shanty.
So yeah, I mean, my general course, if you like, musically has mainly been to work on my own productions, and especially all the stuff with Richie features a few live musicians. It also features guitars from somebody who's well known as a producer in England called Fella, which we've done some things more on a more slightly dubsteppy side of things. Also, the studio is there in Leicester. It's a possibility for other producers to come in and work and use the situation. We can't do live drums, but we can do voicing. We can, you know, do certain things like that. So I voice a lot of musicians, other singers. In Leicester and in England, there's quite a lot of musical talent. So in Leicester, there's Parvez, there's Germania, there's Echo Ranks. You know, there's Madhu, there's a whole heap of great singers, so a lot of them need studio time. They do dub plates, all these kinds of things we do as well. I also sometimes voice for others and produce for others. So in the last, you know, 10 odd years, since officially around say 2007 to 8 started releasing things on singles and on different fronts. But when it comes to CounterAction, it's basically, the foundation is two different setups. So CounterAction Warriors, which is usually the A-sides and feature vocals, is always featuring Fella on guitar, Richie on bass, myself on drums, and then passing vocalists as well as myself. And then the B-sides have always been Jamistic. Jamistic is Richie Roots and myself. Just mainly dubbing, you know. On CounterAction we have 6 10-inches so far. We've also done a couple of free releases online. We have a sister label that we're trying to work on at the moment called Original Sounds, that we're going to be releasing more things on digital fronts. So it will be on all the online shops, and it will be more one-drops and more digital styles rather than the roots. And that there'll still be more 10s and 12s coming from CounterAction on a more steppers and CounterAction Warriors and so on. But so far 6 10-inches, yeah. We're compiled on an album, which is available out there with one, you know, 2 versions of each rhythm basically.
Vinyl.
It's only on digital. So there was a limited CD run, and then you can download it online. Zion Way, basically. Jamistic is the album. So the United Nations of Dub idea, if you like, was something inspired again by Richie Roots. Richie Roots came up with the name United Nations of Dub, and we used it as the name of the radio show that we did together, and still I continue to do. I have to mention that Richie passed away a couple of years ago, due to pretty much a freak accident, if you like, just unexpected anyway, due to stroke. So we've continued the works, and the family's still there, and there's a foundation in Leicester that continues his works, that every year we raise money for various causes. So anyway, Richie inspired United Nations of Dub, the name. We had the radio show. There was a few years in Leicester where there wasn't many dancers, so we did a lot of promotion, bringing different sound systems like Jatabis, like King Earthquake, like Hautal Boja, like Iratian Steppers, like different, you know, of the usual
Yeah.
big sounds in the ends, to be able to promote that music in Leicester. And at the same time in Leicester, there was another promoter called Contact, with a K, who is a friend and who started off doing hip-hop nights and mainly dubstep nights. He was there when the beginning of dubstep was there, so all the big names you can think of came through Leicester in the early days. And he, having gone through that scene, more and more drifted for dub. So eventually he started doing dub dances in Leicester.
Also
and
Contact.
Called Contact, and at the moment he does monthly dances and has been doing so for the last few years, very regular sets, all the big sounds and so on. A few years ago we were going to do a dance together in Birmingham, in a very big, well-known venue. We had this crazy idea to do it with 9 sound systems, to bring 9 sounds at one night. And we said, let's do it. We booked the venue, and then one day the venue was like, I don't know the date, maybe actually we have to give it to this house music crew. So we thought, okay, yeah, and went away and didn't really think much, and it just came naturally. The idea of doing a festival rather than just one night. The idea, if you like, is not ours. The idea of doing it in a holiday park where you can go and buy a ticket and stay for 3 days and sleep there and have different artists and different stages, that idea came from the soul music scene in the UK from back in the 60s even. So there'd be these parties where people wanted to hear soul music, and they'll spread talcum powder on the floor and do the soul music moves, and it would be for 3 days. And so we thought, there's all these amazing things going on in Europe, like Garance, and we have this scene in the UK. In the UK, the dub scene now is very underground. In the 80s, it was in the charts, it was very popular. Now, small clubs, difficult to play, but so many sound system and artists, you know? So we thought, we need to make something to bring it all together. So why don't we make a soul weekender, but for dub and sound system, you know? So we started looking at holiday parks. I mean, as you can see, I can talk forever. The first year, it was a crazy adventure, and we ended up changing location because the first park cancelled, and you know, and so on. But we did it. Somehow it worked.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
When Fontaine's, literally the last day of Christmas holidays, we have sold a few hundred tickets, and it's our first year, so everything is very stressful. We had to deal with all kinds of corporate levels and PayPal and Barclays and, you know, and all kinds of things. And we are these 2 dudes from nowhere, from the Midlands, and nobody believes that this is even going to happen, including the artists. The artists themselves were even more skeptical than, you know, how, what, really, you know. And anyway, somehow we have the vision, and just before Christmas, we get an email saying, very sorry, we can't do it there anymore. But maybe, if you like, consider Prestatyn, which is in North Wales, like you said. And it's turned out to be a fantastic venue. In certain ways, that place it has got a very bad reputation. So if you were to go to England for a holiday, say you've decided to go to England for a holiday, you go to this park and you expect a very high level, you know, hotel or whatever, chances are you will be a bit disappointed. But in our case, instead of being in a tent and instead of using portaloos and instead of being stuck with you going to a sandwich shop for your food, you are able to stay in an apartment with your own bathroom and kitchen, and you can even have some sleep and rest. And if it's cold and rainy, which in the first year it was snowing, you can still get on with it. But everything else, all the events, all the stages, and this year there will be 7, they're all under one roof, one building, except the pool, which is right next door. So the idea is you get a slice of a very big slice of the dub and sound system scene within 3 days in this venue.
Okay, okay.
So the idea is to represent dub rather than just reggae and dub. It's mainly dub and reggae. And it's also more about sound systems rather than live bands. So there's not really live bands, although we have done something with CounterAction, and Kibula Amlak also did a live show. So there is 3 floors on this main big building, and on the bottom floor we have 2 main halls, both very large, very high ceiling. And in those halls, one of them, Mongo's Hi-Fi, is a resident, and we have different artists passing through, doing either live mixes, live stage shows kind of things, but all more sound system style. But Mongo's Hi-Fi stays fixed, and we've also had Sweet Potato sound system on there the first year. The second hall is sound systems that come in every night. So 4 ways on Friday, 4-way on Saturday, Shaka on Friday, 4-way on Saturday, 4-way on Sunday. This year it will be a 3-way on Friday, 3-way on Saturday, and Shaka on Sunday. And all on their own sound systems.
On their own, okay.
You know, so they will bring their own sets.
Okay.
Then you have the second floor, on which we had what we call the Selectors Arena. And that's more like a venue like here, but smaller, not very high ceiling. So you have more the effect of a club and a venue in your city, rather than this massive big stadium hall downstairs.
Okay.
And again, fixed sound system. We use Biscuitin sound system, which is a Leicester sound.
Okay.
Who is actually in Granada tonight. He tried to come over and got stuck on the way.
Okay.
So big up Biscuitin. And then on top of that, we had a cinema space where we can project different movies relating to roots and reggae. And also a chill out area, if you like.
Okay.
We also had the pool, in which we had another stage, and many of the artists playing in the festival would come through and do a cheeky little Hawaiian style party set for the pool, which a lot of people thought, what, dub and pool party, are you weird, you know, what's going on? But actually, you know, especially because it's in a heated pool and inside, and it's worked out to be a really good vibe. Finally, there's a small area in which, for the last few years, Steve Vibronics and also Strider had the opportunity to do what we are doing here now. So to sit with a few artists and discuss musical history.
Programmed by Steve and DJ Strider?
And Strider, yeah. Last year, the first year, Steve Vibronics, and then this year again, Steve Vibronics is doing some talks. I think the dream about UNOD is to be able to represent, we have been able to represent sound systems from France. This year we have a sound system coming from Italy, Imperial Sound, with sound. And we also have a couple of sounds coming from France. We have extra sessions this year, the day sessions in the main hall. So other than the big sounds every night, there will be other sounds in the daytime, all with their own sound. The vision is, the stronger we get, the more sound systems we can involve from different countries. All soundmen travel very hard. So we want to represent sound system on all levels, and that means making sound systems, it means producing music for it, it means every aspect of it. So the more we grow, the more we can represent the culture. It's an opportunity for artists and people who love the music to be in the same space for 3 days and wander around. And you know, first couple of years we had Shaka. The first year there was snow, and Shaka and Warrior were on the way in. Warrior got stuck in the snow. Shaka was able to back up and come down and play. But then Warrior was stuck up there for 2 days. In the end, he played on Sunday. So Shaka, for that whole weekend, was there. Every night you would see him in the dance. And you know, so it's an opportunity to see the people you like their music of, to speak to them, to book them, to chat to other promoters, to chat to other producers, you know, labels, stalls. It's a great opportunity for people from all over the world. We've had people from Japan, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Chile, from Argentina, from Mexico, from Brazil, from, you know, America, from all across Europe, and more people coming every year. And it's, you know, if you like dub music, chances are the people you like will play on somebody else's sound. So say Bush Chemist comes here, or say Aration Steppers in Tibet, or Abashanti, they will play on Naya Bingi sound. And you might have never heard actually Abba's sound or Aration sound. So in the weekend we want to represent more and more of that.
Yeah.
And the stronger we get, you know, that's where we're looking towards, you know. So the UK obviously has a big tradition, and I should say that the dub is more underground, but there is a big surge of vinyl and sound systems in the UK. They're just not necessarily roots sound systems. So there's a lot of young sounds and a lot of good nights going on. Some established nights in the UK are University of Dub in London, which is a regular event, and it features usually 3 ways. There is also sub-dub, which is principally in Leeds, but sometimes does dances elsewhere, and more recently they've been doing some dances in London. And in that dance, usually you have either one main hall, which is strictly aeration and another sound, or you have 2 halls, aeration and another sound, and then in the other hall, sweet potato, and there's a mix of different music. You have jungle, all kinds of stuff, so it's a mix, man. Yes, soup dub. Or sub-dub, or soup-dub. and then in Bristol, there's also teaching in dub, and those are, I suppose, the first that you can think of. There's a few big events that mix genres, that you have different bass music. And in the UK right now, I suppose it's the same everywhere, but in the UK, it's very fashionable bass music. But it's not necessarily roots reggae bass music. It's just sound system, steppers music that might not necessarily be roots. If that makes sense. There's a lot of that.
Okay, so these 3 are the principles.
I would say, yeah.
Oh.
I suppose just like session tapes, radio shows are the only way you can promote this music, and it's very important. Every city has a radio station or 2, and every city will have a roots show going on, and so it's a crucial, I think, element. And now that we have the internet, it's even more easy for selectors all across the world, sound systems all across the world, to be able to transmit music, and we all listen to each other and listen to new music, listen to old selections. I think that's, you know, that's amazing. That's why we called it United Nations Adult, because radio goes beyond borders, you know, and that's kind of the inspiration behind the festival as well, that we showcase what we have in England or in the UK, and then once we showcase that, then we start looking around, and there's so much going on, you know, like here. And if it grows stronger, which at the moment it is, it's our 3rd year, we'll be able to, you know, promote it even more. But yeah, for me, I think radio, it's also a very magical medium, isn't it? It's like you have to, our hearing is actually better than our sight, like physically. And it's ironic that as a society we're more focused on eyesight. It's all about the ears, you know. And with radio you get rid of the sight, no distractions, so you can listen. And I think that's what's most powerful about radio. I mean, yeah, I would say definitely. For one thing, even the most rootical sound systems are a lot more powerful now than they were 15, 20 years ago. And if you go to Shaka, for instance, Shaka still plays with an old set, you know. He still has speaker cables coming, not speakers, like roll out, little hole, 2 naked cables. You know, it's very old school, and I still see sometimes you go to houses in England, you see old closets that somebody's cut a hole for the drivers and glued it around, you know. So the culture has become much more technical, I think, and that has influenced the music as well. And so you don't get so many sounds that support the whole spectrum, if you like, of the music, because you get carried away with playing the hard styles and the dubs, you know. So I think if there's any influence, it's just the way technology has changed in the last years.
Technology and technology, music technology.
Yeah. Yes.
Position.
Music and PA technology, you know, amplifiers, boxes, drivers, you know. If you were a sound one 20 years ago, now it's a bit more rocket science. You can have your full spectrum and plug your computer into your. I went to a dance in Paris, dub station,
and black for jungle is the sound that does it. They are able, you know what I mean, serious sound. They are able to plug a computer into the preamp, custom preamp, and blast the room with noise,
Big noise and
measure, and tune the sound. I don't know many sound systems that did that 20 years ago, you know? So that certainly influences, I think, the music, certainly, because then you are able to reproduce a lot more out of the tunes as well.
Cultural Conference, gracias a la gente de Fotos and Reggae y hasta la próxima.